the SEC just went full chaos mode on Saturday. That was crazy. Oklahoma beats Alabama. Florida beats Ole Miss. Auburn beats Texas A&M. Like, there was all sorts of things going on in the SEC. And what happened in the SEC on Saturday is that the SEC lost the benefit of the doubt. You see, what happens in college football, and I tend to push against this narrative, and candidly, I think rightly so, but there is a narrative, and it's pushed by the major network player in our sport, that it's just like the SEC is the end-all, be-all, and it's just so vastly tougher in every single case. Now, is the SEC a great conference? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very difficult at the top of the conference. Very difficult. And they've got a lot of very good football teams. Very good football teams. They've got a lot of draft picks. I'm not disputing any of that. But what I am telling you is that you lose the benefit of the doubt when your top teams stop just losing to each other and they start losing to the teams at the bottom of your conference, which have shown that they are not very good at all. See, that's what's happening and what happened on Saturday. You lose the benefit of the doubt when you lose to an Oklahoma team that was 1-5 in their last 6 games against FBS opponents. You just do. You lose the benefit of the doubt when one of your losses is against Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State. You lose the benefit of the doubt when you lose to 7-loss Kentucky. You lose the benefit of the doubt when you lose to a 5-loss Florida, who lost at home to Miami. So you can no longer say that, well, it's tough to win on the road in the SEC. No. It's just tough to win on the road in college football. This is what I bristle at, is that there's always the added the comma. It's tough to win on the road, comma, in the SEC. Stop it. It's tough to win on the road, period. Period. Ask Oregon at Wisconsin. Ask Penn State at Minnesota. All of these places are tough. Ask Penn State at USC. I mean, LSU couldn't even beat USC in a neutral. So you get where I'm trying to go here. For a long time, the SEC in this season was getting the benefit of the doubt because the top teams were beating each other. And you could say that, like, hey, man, the top 5 teams, the top 4 certainly, and the top 5 teams in the SEC, they're all really good because they're just beating each other. And because of the schedules, it's like, well, yeah, Georgia, they could get 2 losses, maybe even 3 losses, and we could still say that they're like really, really good. But the problem is that when you lose to Oklahoma and Vandy and Auburn and Arkansas and Florida and Kentucky and LSU, those aren't good losses. And so you lose the benefit of the doubt. That's what happened to the SEC. Great day for Tennessee, by the way. All the teams that needed to lose in their conference lost. Last week, they're on the outside looking in. Now, they're just like, for me, Indiana, firmly in the college football playoff. Firmly in the college football playoff. The data suggests they're firmly in the college football playoff. Great day to be a Vol. How did it feel rooting for Florida? Probably pretty good, knowing that it paid dividends. Watching Florida dunk literally on that hoop for the Ole Miss Rebs, like that was pretty great if you're a Tennessee fan. So the SEC starts to eat itself. I would have given you the benefit of the doubt if you lose to yourself at the top, but that's not what's happening. And so the reality is that the SEC is probably going to be limited to 3 teams. Granted, there is a path for an A&M team to still get into the SEC championship and still win the SEC after the way that they have played. I just highly doubt that. If you look at the standings right now, you got Texas, Georgia, still A&M, then Tennessee, and then South Carolina. I think the best way or path for a 4th team for the SEC is actually South Carolina, because they still have Clemson to play. And now all of a sudden that Clemson-South Carolina game is an absolute monster. If it holds chalk and Texas is able to beat Texas A&M, which they should be able to. Now, granted, it is tough to win on the road, period. And so Texas having to go to A&M is going to be a supercharged environment. It's a rivalry game, and that's not easy to do. But if Texas is able to hold on and they go play Georgia, there's a really good shot that the SEC is only getting 3. And you know what? That's okay. Because, Hey, Alabama, you can't lose to Oklahoma, who's just lost 5 of their last 6 against FBS opponents. You can't lose to Vandy, which lost to Georgia State. Hey, Ole Miss, you can't lose to 7-loss Kentucky. You can't do that. Hey, Ole Miss, you can't lose to 5-loss Florida. Not when all the chips are in the middle of the table. That's not a thing. Okay, so Alabama and Ole Miss, there's not really a path for those teams back in. There would have to be just like mass, absolute pandemonium for that to happen. Now, we just saw that last Saturday, so I'm not saying it's a 0% chance, but those two teams right now are very clearly out. See, the dust settles on a Saturday like last Saturday, and to me, it's like, yeah, Tennessee, Indiana, you're firmly in this playoff because you're still going to get a Miami and SMU loser, so like the loser of that game, and then maybe the winner of Clemson, South Carolina, like that's where the bubble discussion is going to be. The bubble discussion is not going to be on Indiana, and it's not going to be on Tennessee, so long as they take care of their business here at the end of the year. This is what last week meant to me. I think that there was a lot of clarity in terms of the playoff. I do believe that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to rank Indiana higher than a lot of people think because of the data that I just shared with you. Because if you actually pair them against SMU and Miami and Notre Dame, and if you see their resumes right next to one another, they're going to win that resume argument. They just are. So this debate, if you want to call it that, about Indiana is not a debate. They are very clearly in the college football playoff right now. I did want to touch on just for a moment this idea of like, why does this happen? Why do so many teams lose like this? 7 teams in the top 20. And it's something that I've touched on before. And I think that it happened to Alabama. It happened to Ole Miss. It happened to a team I'm about to talk about in terms of like Colorado. Why does this happen? Why do these teams that like all of a sudden they're playing so well to put themselves in position to make a run, and then all of a sudden you have these like inexplicable losses? You're like, how did that happen? What in the world? How did Alabama play that poorly against Oklahoma? Because that game wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And here's what happens. You start playing the game around you rather than the game in front of you. There's so many ways to say this. You can call it being distracted. The quickest way to be defeated is to be distracted. All these old coaches adage, these coaching adages, they are true, and they're true for a reason. When you're not focused on the game right in front of you, there's a good chance that you're going to get beat. If all of a sudden you're preparing that week and all you can think about is what happens if you win, the result, if you start thinking about what it would mean if you win this game and the next game and the next game, and maybe we're going to be in the playoff, and what is that going to be like, and where are we going to be seated, where might we play, and is that going to be cold? Then guess what you're not focusing on? The game plan. What's Oklahoma doing on third down? Meanwhile, what's Oklahoma doing and what's Florida doing? They're not thinking about what's happening in 2 and 3 and 4 weeks. They're not thinking about what happens if we win this game or when we win this game and what's in our hands and what's our destiny as a team. You know what they're focused on? The game plan. And football is won through the attention to details, period. And in life, greatness is realized through the attention to detail. And when you take your eyes off the details, when you take your eyes off the small things in this sport, you get beat. That's why it happens. And these are still kids. I can understand why they're looking ahead. Do you know why? Because all guys like me and everybody else that talks about this sport talk about is the overarching narratives and what happens if they win and who's going to be in and they should beat them. And we talk about everything other than those little details that a player has to be focused on. So it comes down to focus. That's really what it is. That's why 7 teams in the top 20 get beat. It's because they're looking at everything else. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.